Again, it is my honor and my privilege. Thank you guys that you guys are giving me the opportunity and the time to listen to me and I guess make sense a little bit of whatever it is that I'm saying. I kind of cringe a little bit at the episodes that I've already launched. There's some areas where I'm like, man, I think I could explain that a little bit better. I think I can say it in a much more articulate way, but we're growing. And you know what? It is what it is. I think if we need a little bit clarification, please reach out, guys, and let me know. I'm more than happy to try to clarify something up if I'm either botching it or just doing something, wrong. So I'm a little embarrassed, but at the end of the day, my vulnerability, I just thank God that He's broken in me, like the wanting to be perfect. Like, I'm okay saying I'm wrong and I need help. I'm okay with saying, that was a mistake and it needs to be fixed. And I hope it can transmit to you guys too. So please, if something's not communicating or coming through correctly or clearly, reach out and I can definitely try to make it clear for you guys. All right. Well, we're growing, we're trying, we're developing. You're joining me in this walk. And here we go. Episode number 3. Men's feelings. This is a tough one because, man, to talk about men's feelings, it's like we have a better chance talking about other topics or something else. But men's feelings are like a vault. It's very, very difficult to tap into feelings of men for many reasons. I'll try to explain some of them. One of the reasons why it's difficult for us men to be able to express our feelings is because either in the past we have tried to express feelings, but it has bitten us and it becomes a little bit overwhelming for someone else to hear what we are expressing. And well, it causes stress. It causes problems. So it starts teaching a man, if I keep this, then it won't cause pain, and I'd rather just suppress it than confess it. That rhymed, and I'm gonna make a shirt with that. No, I'm just kidding. But so things like that as you're growing up, no one really teaches you or tells you how to understand your feelings. But here are a couple examples more of why. People think that just because you don't express or adapt to emotions, that men just can't feel deeply. And sometimes we feel deeply, we just don't know, or we weren't shown how these emotions can be expressed or controlled, or what to even do with them, to be honest with you. Hence, in episode 1, how I said one of the things that men do when a particular emotion or question, not an emotion, when a question is asked that hits an emotional area of a man, you start laughing because that's the way to deflect, because it's hitting something that, oh man, I don't want to touch there because it can definitely get me in trouble. Another thing that men tend to do with feelings is we tend to convert those feelings into something different. Sometimes we suppress them and just take them to another place, another arena. Sometimes we convert them into a physical complaint. Like, we think that they're complaining about us, when in reality we just need to figure out how to listen, how to understand what they are communicating, and what we can do to not take it as a complaint, but take it as what area we can grow in. Ties in with episode 2, right? So that's why I'm taking this kind of step by steps, because it goes into the reality of what we lack. I have a note here that says one of the reasons why it's difficult for us to understand feelings is because where I have it right here, the lack of training. No one really taught us, no one really showed us how we can understand what just happened. Traumas can happen. Like my parents got divorced. I never had a conversation with my mom or dad. What happened? Why? And especially at that time, like in the movies when you see that the kid feels like it's his fault, I felt like it was my fault. No one asked, no one told me. I just had to kind of deal with that by myself. So divorce for me is very like devastating and very difficult for me because I just I felt so guilty for something that I know now it wasn't my fault, but back then no one helped me. I really thought it was because of me. And then there's even more pressure that gets put in you without, it's not like their fault necessarily, because you also have to understand parents, they grew up with a different mentality, with different parents, with different backgrounds. So they did the best that they can. And I'm truly grateful for my parents because they continue to give me till today beautiful life lessons, and they love my children and my wife and their acceptance. It's amazing. But back then it was like, I remember my mom telling me like, no crezcas, mijo, porque si creces, el child support se va a acabar. Whether if it was a joke or if it wasn't, it really did make me feel guilty. Like, man, I can't grow. Like, this is what my mom needs to move on and to go forward. Suppress your feelings. Like, you really start thinking, man, I'd rather just not discuss this. So what can we do to be able to express, or to be able to help a man understand that's what you're feeling and that's what you need to do, so that you can either express it outward or get free from the pushing it down and just keeping it there? Number one, I can tell you from experience, guys, from experience, it's when someone gives you a space that is safe. And I mean safe, where I used to dread, and 100%, I'm being honest with you guys, is I used to dread. My wife would always ask me questions about my past and with who and what did you do? And I hated answering these questions because I'm like, what does it matter? It shouldn't, like, it's going to hurt your feelings. Like, I don't understand. Why is it that you want to know so much? One of the things that really helped me was when my wife gave me that safe space. She would ask questions that for me were very uncomfortable. I did not want to speak about them. She would ask me stuff like, about my past relationships, what happened, and almost like into details. And it would be awkward because in my heart, I'm like, why do you want to talk about this? This is going to be hurtful. This is going to make you sad. Like, and I used to tell her, we don't need to touch that. Like, there's certain things that we don't need to even talk about. Like, why do you even want to get there? And I think that, and again, that happened in my first marriage, and that, I think, made her feel like there was something being kept when I didn't want to keep it from her. I just didn't think it was necessary to share. And some stuff is not necessary to share. But to answer certain questions for her, yes. And even though it was uncomfortable, I have, and I can honestly say from today, she knows absolutely everything about me. Everything. And as a man, that not only allowed me to love her so much more, that I'm so glad, like, it lifted something from me to say, I can be who I am. I don't have to pretend to be something that I'm not. And she loves me just the way that I am, with those mistakes and all. And then it allowed her to open up her space as well. And she started telling me, and certain things, again, are difficult to hear, but this is the importance of mentorship, counseling, and growth. Because when you grow, you don't take them as a direct insult or as a physical complaint. you take them more as an opportunity to love your wife through it, to appreciate where she's been and where she has gotten to. When people say God's not brought you this far just because, that's the same way to approach it. And I think that's only something, again, my faith is in God, right? So I feel like a lot of the times when I'm having these conversations with my wife, like my God, is telling me to tell her something. Like she told me something where it was one of her relationships, and I just told her, man, babe, I just want to say I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry that he did that to you. And she started crying, and she's like, why do you have to say sorry? And I said, because I felt it in my heart. I felt God tell me that you needed to hear that. Whether the douche accepts it or not, or he says he's sorry, I'm apologizing for him. That's not the way a man should treat a woman. And she did similar things to me as well. She's loved me. I think I know everything about her. And the only reason why I say I think is because she's the one that has to say definitively, he knows everything. The way I am saying definitively, she knows everything. And that took our intimacy also to another level, like to a place where it's like we want to please each other, and we want to give each other and this is not just the sexual side. This is also just the respect side, the as a man side, as a woman side, out in public, in the private, when there's people around. It connected that intimacy where we just know, hey, that's his place, that's her place, this is where they belong. And I would have never reached that point, to be honest with you, if it wasn't for my wife, because I didn't want to go into the uncomfortable spots. I didn't want to go to the areas where she wanted to know certain details and certain things. I pushed her away from it, but until I said, all right, you want to know? Here we go. She pushed me to it. And this is why, till today, I will say that my wife has helped me develop so much as a man. She has pushed. I tell her all the time, I'm grateful that you filed for separation. I didn't before. As soon as when we first got back together, guys, I was not grateful for the separation. I told her, like, we could have fixed all this without having to go through what we went through. But the reality is now, I can't change the past. That is the path that God has allowed us to go through. And now I can see, you know what? It pushed me to rock bottom. It pushed me to a place where it forced me, you're either going to stay there or you're going to do something about it. And that's why I'm just so grateful with her, because God has really given me a person that ayuda idónea. Like, I don't know how to translate that in English, but she really has been someone that has helped, developed, and we've grown together. And I'm just so grateful for that. So with all that being said, the area that we need is an area to feel safe to express. It could be with your wife. Maybe not in the beginning. Maybe in the beginning you need to seek out a men's group. Maybe in the beginning you need to seek out a men's group, or maybe an individual person. You do have to be careful, because as a man, I've been in places where you share and someone uses it to make fun of you rather than really helping. Or they take what you say, and rather than keeping it in confidence, they share it with other people. So you definitely have to find it, because then when that happens, a man doesn't want to share anymore. Why do I want to share if you're just going to be sharing it to the rest of the world as well? Another thing that you can do to help express feelings is ask your wife, ask your partner, hey, what am I thinking correctly in this, or am I not thinking correctly in this? I'll give you an example. A lot of them are going to be part of my life. So we have a 14-year-old daughter, and then we have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, which all of their birthdays are coming up. Lord, I have to plan for their birthdays. And then JJ, the youngest one, who's 3, who's going to be 4, right? So I have all that to say, I have 14, 9, 7, and 3. The 14-year-old is a teenager, 14, teenager. She wants to wear certain crop tops. As a dad, I want to send her to a room every single time, and I want her to change, and I want her to put a big baggy shirt every single time, and I want her to cover up, and I want her to this. And in the beginning, I was actually getting away with it, and she was changing. I think when she was like 12 or 13. But now that she's 14, I got a little pushback from my wife, and it caused a little friction in the beginning. But again, I asked the question, what am I doing where I'm lacking in this? And then she said, you got to let her find her identity. You got to trust her. And I know it's scary, but you got to give it a shot. Like, you can't just control every single thing. You can't. And I can't, because it's too many things to go through. Like, my other kids need my attention too, not just her. So I started just trusting and saying, okay, fine, you can wear it here, you can wear it there. And then certain days where it's like a family party and she wants to wear something, and I'm like, oh, heck no. I asked my wife, actually. I tell her, babe, am I overreacting? Am I looking at this incorrectly? And most of the times I am, because of the unprocessed feelings that I have. One, I'm a man, so I'm already thinking what men are going to be thinking, and I'm trying to protect my daughter from that. But then the reality too is, the sick ones are the men that are either looking or thinking in a very negative way. She should be able to wear what she wants to wear without any worry of anything happening. Now, I will always be observing, and I will always be looking out for her, but for all my kids. But my wife helped me understand those feelings of hers to allow her to express herself and allow her to kind of be her. Get what I'm saying? So as men, what we can do is I think, kind of speaking on what I'm sharing right now, what I'm really feeling more is like, we have to be open to hearing correction. And it's vice versa too. Like, the example with my oldest daughter is, we tell her to change, and sometimes she does. Sometimes she does have to. Sometimes I get what I want, and sometimes she gets what she wants. Most of the time she gets what she wants, but regardless I'm healing, my wife's healing. So I have to be open to saying, hey, am I tripping here? Is this a generational thing that I'm scared of and obsessed over, and that she can help me push through and manifest through? So that helps. So these couple tips, or these things that I shared with you, in the sense of, just because we don't express, it doesn't mean we don't feel deeply. We need to have an area or an arena where we can express our feelings without receiving any pushback or fight back, to be comfortable and to just have that open space. And again, whether if it's in a men group or with your wife or in a relationship, like, find that person that will not judge and will not criticize, because it's difficult. I've had, actually, this reminds me, I've had a conversation with a buddy of mine. We went to Vegas for my birthday, and he was actually asking me intimate questions, but I know him personally. So I was like, okay, I'll answer. And they weren't asking detail. They were asking more like just questions that I answered. And when he saw my honest response, he started answering honestly as well. And it was not about, the world makes you feel like you have to perform like crazy. And it's like, dude, we can be real and we can talk. And the point that I'm getting to, it helped him to get to a place where it said, hey, I can be vulnerable. And then we started talking about other stuff, and he was just being completely vulnerable about, feelings of his father and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's awesome, dude. Like, I'm glad. So that's what we're trying to do here. And this is why it's important for us as men to try to understand how to express our feelings, how to be able to share and correctly. Because the truth is, when we rebuttal back with anger, and we I'll tell you this, if your wife gets scared when she knows that you're almost coming home from work, it's probably because you don't know how to control your feelings and you don't know how to express them. And those are the things that come through individual growth, learning understanding your feelings, and learning how to develop through them. And obviously, with the more episodes that are to come, we're going to dig deeper into other areas. But those are the things that are very concerning, because we overlook them and we think like, no, they're not afraid of us, but they are. The kids might say, oh, I don't want to do that because dad's going to yell at me. Why? Is it really a reason to yell, or is there something in there that hasn't been able to be discovered and to really get out and say, hey, this bothers me that this is getting done? And obviously you first speak it with the partner first, with whoever you're with, and then you go from there to see whether it eventually, expressed to the kids or what have you. But this is why it's important for us as men to understand how to process our feelings. If there's something I didn't touch, if there's something that you want to ask and say, hey, but what about this? Or how do I do it with this? Reach out, guys. You guys have the information. We'll definitely do our best to answer questions for you and then help you grow as well. Again, I shared this in the past, and I'll say it again. If I don't know the answer, I will do my best to make sure I can get something for you, or at least I can definitely reference you to many different places that I've grown myself to learn, hey, this is a good number to call. This is a good place to go. This is a good place to get mentored. Many opportunities to grow, guys. So feel free to reach out, be vulnerable. You're in a safe space here. So, well, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Mac Effect. I hope it's causing and stirring stuff up in you. Can't wait to see you for episode 4. But in the meantime, just, I would hear a pastor of mine